analytic philosophy. And he became famous in 1952, and the main reason for it was the publication of his book, it was an essay, Two Dogmas of Empiricism. So you can actually go and find it. This might actually be it looks like a PDF of the actual article. Do we want to, we don't really, let's just do this. And what it concerns were it's kind of a theme in the way this course is presented. That's because the text I used to use for it was from Plato to Derrida, and Quine was like the penultimate essay in the text. And what you get is the beginnings where after Plato you get Aristotle's explanation of the square that we did, right? So that you've got the universals are the statements at the top, all SRP and no SRP, right? So you're talking about all the members of the set, the subject set, are also in the predicate set. All the I and O statements, though, are synthetic. You're talking about just individual items. Some are and some are not. So all along through the whole history of what we've been studying up to this point, there was considered to be two kinds of knowledge, right? The one is, what there is, right? And that is the definitions of those things, essentially. So you've got all horses are animals, and how you detail those through set theory. It's essentially set theory that describes how all of these things are all described, and actually that bleeds into the other aspect of it, and that is the predication. What can we know about them, right? And the interesting thing that occurred when I was a young man was that physicists were discovering that particles, and actually I'll describe the lecture that he gave to us that I sat like this close. I was closer actually than you and I at my alma mater. And what he pointed out was that mathematical logicians, which is what he was at Harvard, their main job was to give physicists the linguistic tools, the logical tools, to figure out what the heck they were doing. And the problem was that by then, physicists had come to conclude that if you had a situation, in a classical sense, if I have thing A and thing B, and I have two boxes, I can have all the possible arrangements of those, both A and B in the left box, both A and B in the right box, A in the left box, B in the right box, and B in the left box, and A in the right box, right? You can have all those different things. The trouble is, with the contemporary understanding of the standard list of particles, etc., we've got particles that are not objects in themselves. So it doesn't make sense to say we've got A and B. What we have instead is two particles in the left box, two particles in the right box, or one particle in each box. But it doesn't make sense to say that there's an A or B, and that that's a different situation. Instead, what we've got are situations, or what would be called predicates, descriptions of what the items are doing, right? So in language, we normally in English need a noun. What's the noun doing? It's doing this, right? That's how we figure out what a sentence is. But in physics, they no longer needed the nouns, because all you had were the actions, essentially, right? And so they created what's called predicate language or predicate logic, where you basically, I could, would you like me to look for like something on predicate logic? I don't know how useful this kind of thing is. So instead of actually having objects in the language, what you now have are variables, and usually we go X, Y, and Z. So if I just have, an X, because I don't really have a name for it. What is important is that this particular variable, in a particular case, say in this particular case, so therefore, backward Z, there exists an X such that X is Socrates. Put an S there, Socrates. So Socrates exists, basically, right? Whatever the object is at the moment acting like Socrates. So Socrates is a predicate, not an object, right? And Socrates is wise. No, I don't want to do that. X is wise. Sorry. Gosh, I haven't taught logic for too long. You really need to keep practicing it, just like anything, really. So there is a thing that exists that is Socrates and wise, right? So the capital letters are the predicates, and so what I'm trying to do is essentially just talk about the characteristics of the thing, as opposed to what the particular thing is at the moment, because all objects essentially only consist of their characteristics, not something inherently belonging to the object itself.
There's nothing that makes an apple an apple.
What we have instead is a set of things that at the moment are appleness and maybe rottenness, depending on the state of that appleness, right? What happened in 1952 was he posted this, and what was really neat about it was that he pointed out that the analytic statements, the universal statements, have a logical equivalent that is a synthetic statement. So I'll do it this way because it's easy this way, and then I'll try to explain it, right? So if we have, for anything you pick, it is, pick something. I'll just use SX, subject, right? Or whatever. That turns out to be logically equivalent. So this is for anything you pick. Actually, say this would be everything in the universe is happy. Silly, because it's not true, right? But nonetheless, you get the idea that for anything you pick, this is a quantifier. Anything, right? It's happy. That's equivalent to saying it's not the case that there exists an X that is not happy. So it's not the case that there is something that is not happy, if you're saying everything is happy, right? And you could put a negation sign here, and this is equivalence, right? And say that is equivalent to saying that there is something that is not happy. It's not the case that for everything you pick, it's happy, right? Is equivalent to there exists an X such that it's not happy, right? These are equivalent, right? I could also say for anything you pick, it's not happy is equivalent to saying it's not the case that there is something that is happy. Did I do that right?
Yeah.
This is easy to get confused. That's why I'm trying to stick with the symbols.
That looks like Mama John.
It takes a while to understand.
For anything you pick, it's not happy is equivalent to saying it's not something that exists that is happy. Okay? And then last but not least is just, it's not the case that for anything you pick, it's not happy. It's equivalent to, there exists something that is happy. So, notice that everything on this side is an A statement or an E statement. Everything on this side is an I or an O statement. So the long historical division between the analytic, the definitional things, and the specific things, the synthetic things, right, turns out to be an illusion, right? They're actually equivalent in specific, ways, right? So what does that mean? Well, from a pragmatist point of view, where what we're focusing on is the nature of language and how it's being used in a particular case, that means that any statement that you want to make that says, this is true for all of this set, right? All the members of this set, actually has to be constantly checked against individual cases.
If you say all crows are black, then if you find something that is not a crow and is not black, then you are adding evidence to the fact that all crows are black.
And you have to be always ready to update your information. That's the pragmatic thing. Remember, I think when we were talking about Dewey, I pointed out that the issue of truth was a problem. Dewey came up with the concept of a warranted assertion. That what we really need is just say, this is my current warranted assertion or my current accepted hypothesis, waiting for us to find more evidence that might change, what we think. So this was pretty significant. He won the Kyoto Prize for this, which, let me ask, how many folks have heard of the Kyoto Prize?
This is the third time we talked about it.
So you've heard of it. Does that mean I'm getting old, that I can't remember that I've already talked about something?
You actually talked about it the first day of class.
No kidding.
I'm weird, you know this.
That's a good thing, though.
It's really good.
I've talked about it so many times in so many classes that it's not a matter of me losing my mind. It's getting confused about
I get you.
which,
We didn't
My-
think you were losing your mind.
my wife and I talk about this all the time because, she's worried that she is losing hers. And I keep pointing out, no. You just now know so much stuff because she reads tons of stuff every day, including she's writing her own Bible, by the way, if anybody's interested. It's actually just a copy from one that she has because she's learned that it's a good thing to write. And so she came up with the idea of writing the Bible. So she's currently writing the Bible, which, in pencil, which is, because sometimes she makes a mistake and she has to erase. That's better than the original prophet, I think, who just left the mistake there. All these generations, between Adam and David, and all of these generations between David and Joseph. And so, Jesus, oh, wait. That's right, Joseph has nothing to do with Jesus, so forget it. I'm sorry. That's probably wrong of me to laugh at something like that. But that and what is it? Ecclesiastes, where she says, there's nothing new under the sun. And was that a new statement? In which case she was wrong. Or if she was right, she copied it from somebody. Sorry. That could be fun if you like to laugh at that kind of stuff. But, or not. That's all right. Okay, so Quine. Why is Quine important? Because Quine was developing a predicate logic, which now is, I guess there's lots of versions out there. I'm not current with what different logics are and all the different computer languages. Never studied those. Although while I was at the NSA, I was using Unix. Yes? Do they still use Unix? It was a computer language that the Cray used. You know the Cray? No, nobody knows what the Cray is. Oh, everybody knew that the Cray was like the biggest computer in the basement of the NSA. Oh well. So what else? So followers of Quine, I guess, and other things. I was wondering, you know, I used to use one of Quine's books in one of my classes. It was Truth, Beauty, Goodness, which we no longer offer. I taught that. I was the only one teaching it for like 8 years here. So I always point out that I had the monopoly on truth, beauty, and goodness here in Anchorage. That could have been funny too. It is fun. A couple of you are laughing over that one. That's good. But I had to go last night and look at, and the only way I could get to it, because I had since cleaned up the page here, and I had to go and find, oh wait, it wasn't under this one. It was under current schedule, because I had kind of left that there. So if you go back far